All right. I got the go ahead, Jamie. Good morning. Thank you. Welcome to First UU. I'm Don Retzer, one of your board members, and I have on my mind this morning, why did you come to church today? It's hot, but you made it. So maybe you came because you were anticipating some chance to be together, to make the connections, to enjoy the friendship, to enjoy the conversation. Maybe you come all the time and this is what you always do on Sunday morning, so you're here. Or maybe you knew it was the second Sunday and it is the time for New Beginning to be here. Or maybe you knew that the new community minister, Julie Price, is in the pulpit today, and so I'm glad you're here. For me, I come to sing because there's nothing quite like being able to come into this group and then after listening to Jamie play the music, we all take a breath together and then we sing. It's kind of amazing that we listen enough and that we are coordinated enough to somehow get in the rhythm, and then we get to the tune eventually. And then we do that thing called group singing. And that really gets to me. That's what I come to do. And then there's a moment in there where you notice the words on the screen and they move you and you kind of choke up and you say, oh, that's what we're singing about. 10 years ago, in August, I came to this church and found out it was a singing church. And that's why I'm still here. If you don't get enough of that just in the choral music, which Reverend Logan told us last month, just a month ago, he said that was one of the great powerful metaphors of what it means to be a community together is choral music. And I get that. I resonate with that. But I don't get enough, so that's why I'm in the singers. And we're about to start up again for the season. You saw the table in the back. You can sign up if you'd like to enjoy that miracle of choral music even more. Come join us. We start rehearsals in 10 days. Welcome.
Thank you, Pastor Don. Good morning. I am the Reverend Sherman Z. Logan, Jr., and I have the honor of serving this fantastic congregation as your senior minister. And welcome to this beautiful August morning where the temperature is about 115 out there. So I'm glad Pastor Don asked you why did you come today, so hopefully some of you have come here to be cool. Joining us this morning, our partners in ministry, the Reverend D.K. Logan and New Beginning, and as Reverend Don mentioned, our guest minister this morning is the Reverend Julie Price. In a few moments, we'll share a ritual covenant and we'll formally welcome Reverend Julie as our affiliate community minister. And we're so glad and grateful that Reverend Julie has chosen our congregation as her church home and as her site for affiliation and grounding for her unfolding community ministry. So it's custom here at First UU that we invite our visitors to introduce themselves. So if you are visiting with us today, and if you are comfortable, raise your hand. Jamie, the minister of the mic, will come to you, and we ask you to please rise and tell us who you are and where you're from. Are there any visitors?
Hi, I'm Amy. I am relatively new to Richmond, and I'm first time visiting here, and I'm here because I have known Reverend Price since she was a seminarian.
Oh, wow.
Quite some time ago, so.
Welcome, Amy.
Knew we had more. Morning. This is Joe and Joel, and we're from Midlothian. We were here last week, and this is our second time here.
Welcome.
Hi, we're the Smithsons. We've been in Richmond for a long time, but this is our first time here, and we're just interested in checking it out.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Journey,
I'm Marcellus.
and born and raised in Richmond, visiting with my mom.
Morning. Welcome. Okay, are there any more visitors? Don't be shy. Don't be bashful.
And don't be shy to join choir.
Join the choir.
Join choir.
Hi, my name is Katie Sutler, fairly new to Richmond. This is my second time here, and glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Jamie, thank you so much. Thank all of you for being with us this morning. This community is what it is because of your presence, and we're so glad that you are here. So now please rise as you're comfortable to greet our neighbors and welcome our visitors. I mean, you want to go down one time, I just stay up here. Right?
Come into this circle of community. Come into this sacred place. Be not tentative. Bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. Bring also your sorrow and your pain. Bring your brokenness and your disappointments. Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides within each of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. May we know the joy of being together.
May the light of this chalice give light and warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we despair. And may we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the circle of life. Please rise in body or in spirit and let us sing our opening hymn, When Our Hearts Are in a Holy Place.
All right, I am acting board president today while Sharon Amos is away on a month sabbatical. So today, the Board of Trustees of this congregation has voted to enter in a covenant of affiliation with Reverend Julie Price to recognize and affirm her role as a Unitarian Universalist affiliated community minister, serving the larger community beyond our church. Reverend Julie is in preliminary fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association. She was originally ordained and served as a theologically liberal Baptist minister, but was drawn to the spiritual diversity and social justice commitment of Unitarian Universalism. She found a spiritual home at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Fairfax, Virginia in 2013, and went on to serve there in religious exploration and as an intern minister. She served as an affiliated community minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston, Virginia from 2019 to 22, where she supported the congregation in the areas of worship leadership, religious education workshops, and pastoral care, and enjoyed periodic collaboration with the music ministry. Reverend Julie serves as a board-certified hospice chaplain and spiritual director in Richmond, Virginia. Her call to ministry focused on assisting folks of diverse spiritual beliefs and practices deepen their connections to the sources of love, meaning, purpose, and joy in their lives. Reverend Julie, we are glad that you have chosen our congregation as our church home, and today we want to affirm you as our affiliated community minister. So in our covenant with you, we pledge to respect your ministry as an extension of our congregation's outreach to make known the principles and values of our Unitarian Universalist faith in the broader community. We pledge our understanding that you are not our parish minister, but rather one whose professional ministry takes place largely outside of our church. And we pledge our support and appreciation of your work in the community ministry and of your volunteer service within this church.
Thank you, Larry. I am indeed grateful for this opportunity and the privilege to be formally affiliated as community minister with this congregation that I am coming to love. This is my pledge to you. I will bring the spirit of this church and of our Unitarian Universalist faith into my ministry in the larger community. I will responsibly represent this congregation and extend its invitation to join with us in gentle fellowship. I will be mindful that although I am a member of the congregation, I am first a minister in collegial ministry relationship with the senior minister and other ministers on staff of this church, and therefore bound by our ministerial covenant and code of professional practice. I will honor Reverend Sherman's call as our senior minister, always consulting with him in a spirit of mutual collaboration and cooperation. And I will take an active role in specific areas of congregational life as mutually agreed upon. I will keep the congregation informed about my community ministry activities, and I will continue as a joyfully participating and pledging member of this church, with my deepest gratitude to the congregation and to Reverend Sherman for your support of my ministry.
All right, will the congregation please rise? You have heard the pledges made by Reverend Julie Price and myself on behalf of the Board of Trustees in our covenant of affiliation. I ask you now to join me in affirming this new relationship with our community minister. So please repeat after me. We affirm this covenant of affiliation. We affirm this covenant of affiliation.
With these words, we have officially recognized a relationship that has been strongly felt by this congregation. Truly, this is a day of celebration for community ministry and for our church. And Reverend Julie, who is now our officially affiliated community minister. And for myself and the congregation, this is a happy day for all of us. Congratulations, Reverend Julie.
You may be seated. Thank you. So now we're going to have a fun story for all ages, and I've recruited a few people to help me. We're going to all enjoy it from our seats, except for the volunteers I have. Come on up. Yep, perfect. And Let me get us all situated. That's right. Come stand next to me. Come that way a little bit. Alex, you'll be in the end. Yeah. There we go. Perfect. All right. Alex has the flu and pneumonia. Alex has fever, chills, and is having a hard time breathing. It's so bad, in fact, that she's had to go to the hospital. Alex is feeling miserable. Poor Alex. This is Alex's spouse. They thankfully haven't gotten the flu, but they are quite worried about Alex and about the hospital bill and about missing work to support Alex. Poor spouse. This is Alex's best friend. He is really missing Alex, who hasn't been in touch since she went to the hospital. Usually they text and FaceTime every day. And best friend is feeling really concerned and quite lonely. Quite lonely. Poor best friend. This is Alex's coworker. He is sorry that Alex has the flu. He really is. And he's quite stressed because they have a major project coming due at the end of the week, and now it looks like he's going to have to do it all by himself. Poor coworker. Finally, we have Alex's minister. He is very concerned about Alex and her family. But as it happens, his partner is recovering from knee surgery. And he's double duty having to take care of his spouse and his congregation. Poor minister. Well, good news. Today, Alex is feeling better. And so all her folks are planning to reach out to her, but they're not quite sure what to say. Best friend comes to the hospital and can't help himself, shares how hard it's been to not text and not FaceTime this past week, how lonely he's been. Coworker calls Alex's spouse to check in and see how Alex is doing. And just can't help describing how hectic it's been at work with Alex around. And then a minister comes and sits at Alex's bedside to offer pastoral support. It turns out he took really good notes in pastoral care class in seminary, and so he keeps his focus on Alex and doesn't share with her the troubles he's dealing with at home. Why not, we might ask? Well, because dumping his problems on Alex won't comfort her and may leave her feeling like she has to take care of him. She's the one in crisis, and so she's the one who needs comfort, not complaints. What we're demonstrating here is what counselor Susan Silk calls ring theory. And there is a beautiful diagram of it online that the folks who are watching from home, you lucky ducks, get to actually see. But we've had a technical difficulty, so it's not showing up today. But if you happen to scan the QR code, this is beyond me, but it's on there. But so instead, like 10 minutes ago, I made my own diagram, okay? So it's the best we can do for now. So you see that they're concentric rings of concern, with the person in the middle, which is Alex, being the person facing trauma. She's in the center, and then close loved ones, families, in the second concentric ring, and then extended friends in the next ring, and we got a coworker, minister, etc. So you see kind of how that goes. The closer in relationship that someone is to the person in trouble, having crisis, the more support they need. Dumping or complaining needs to be directed towards people who are least impacted by the trauma. So the moniker is support in and dump out. So, Alex, who can you complain to? You can complain to spouse, to best friend, to coworker, to minister, to everyone, because she's the one who needs support. Well, what about spouse? Who can spouse complain to? This way, that's right. The minister's a good choice there, right? Yep, and best friend. Is it good to complain to Alex, or should we complain out to someone who's not? Minister. Minister, so he's going to complain to the minister. And coworker, what about you? Who can you complain and lean on? Minister! Oh, poor minister. He's really getting dumped on, isn't he? Who's there for him to dump to? Aha. Oh, no. But see, minister was an excellent student in clinical pastoral education. And he has clergy colleagues. Clergy colleagues to dump to. Comfort in, dump out. A handy little rule to help know how best to support each other in the midst of crisis and trouble so that everyone gets the support they need. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Rachel Dean, and I have the absolute honor of serving as the Chief Executive Officer at Voices for Virginia's Children. I live here in Richmond. I'm a frequent UU visitor. My children are downstairs doing flame activities. And I want to talk to you about Voices today. At Voices for Virginia's Children, we believe that every young person in Virginia should have the opportunity to thrive. And I know as a parent, I worry a lot about the future my children are facing. Climate change, a youth mental health crisis, economic insecurity, under-resourced public schools, a broken child welfare system, and so much more. And as a parent, I want to raise my children to love justice and mercy and to have hope. But when I talk to young people around the state, and when I think about the young people I represented for many years as a legal aid attorney, I know that they often feel like they have no avenue to create change in their lives. And our job at Voices is really to trust young people as the best experts on their own lives, and then to provide them with the tools they need to advocate for themselves. We use data, research, and deep community conversations to knock down the barriers that stand between young people and opportunity. So the community we serve is made up of young people across Virginia, ages 0 to 24, and their families. We are headquartered in here in Richmond, and our impact is felt statewide. We convene young people and those working to serve them, turning the stories of young advocates into creative policy solutions that we share with lawmakers to create change. We lead free trainings on topics like storytelling for advocacy and building personal narrative. We manage the Kids Count Data Center for the state of Virginia, where we provide free data on child well-being indicators and best practices in youth development. And our signature youth advocacy program is called Virginia's Youth in Action. We are about to select and unveil our new class of 2024. Over a 9-month period, these youth ages 15 to 22 will learn the basics of self-advocacy and storytelling for change and community engagement. They will have mentorship and professional development opportunities. And really, our work at Voices results in success for children and families across Virginia. Our policy wins have included thousands more children having access to high-quality pre-K, youth with mental health challenges having better access to care. We have been active in the fight against anti-transgender student policies, and we will continue to do that across the state. And really, we are hoping that we can equip young people with a better chance at a successful and thriving adulthood, and equip families with the tools they need to advocate, and really make it possible for all of us to thrive together in community. So I thank you for your warm welcome and your generosity. It's nice to see you today.
Thank you, Rachel. Please look to the monitor for ways to give. And if you'd like to give in person, the ushers are passing the baskets. Offering will now be taken and most generously received.
I invite us now into a time of meditation and prayer. I invite you to center yourself in whatever way is comfortable for you as you're seated or standing. I invite you to notice how your feet may be touching the floor or against your leg. Just focus for a moment on grounding yourself here in this present moment. Taking a few deep, renewing and relaxing breaths. Breath of life, sustaining presence, As we breathe in and breathe out, may we open our minds and soften our hearts to the love that moves within us and among us. Each breath connects us anew to ourselves, to one another, and to a larger communion with all of life. We extend compassion this day to all that are suffering, and we say their names, either in the quiet of our hearts or in a whisper on our lips. Katie, Hawaii, Ukraine, we offer compassion this day to all that are rejoicing, and we say their names in our hearts or in a whisper on our lips. May all know compassion. May all experience comfort. May all be well. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be. Deep Listening by Mary Elizabeth Cotton. Let us listen. Just for a while, let us silence our minds and open our hearts. Just for a while, let us listen from within. Listen. Not to gain knowledge, not to formulate questions, rather to chance upon sacred bonds and profound wisdom. Just for a while, Let us not seek information or answers. Let us not rouse the intellect, but embrace the spirit. If thoughts cloud the brain, let them pass. If replies tingle on the tongue, let us breathe. Breathe them away silently. Return to them later, but here, in this precious time of sharing, let us listen. Let the words wash over us and seep into a still, quiet pool. Let us listen. At the very first large gathering of Unitarian Universalists that I ever attended, it actually was a petite, unassuming Roman Catholic who stole the show for me. The year was 2014, and I was a new Unitarian Universalist attending my first General Assembly up in Providence, Rhode Island. Was anyone else there? The General Assembly is the yearly continental gathering of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Sister Simone Campbell, a religious leader, an attorney, and a poet, had become famous for organizing the Nuns on the Bus social justice tour that year, and she gave the prestigious Ware Lecture, given each year by a guest of the UUA president. And this down-to-earth, dynamic storyteller and justice warrior absolutely blew my socks off. Sister Simone told the crowd that when she was on the bus tour, a full-time videographer who was along the tour with them said to her, "Sister, it just seems like whenever there is trouble, you seem to walk towards it. Most people run away." And she said, "I realized then that all of our spiritual leaders, when there are broken hearts or pain in our world, they have walked towards it. They walk toward the pain in order to embrace, to touch, to heal." From that, she said, she began thinking about the journey of faith as walking toward trouble. Ooh, gives me tingles, even now, just thinking of that. This theological concept that had been so big and complicated, what is faith, was crystallized in a way that spoke right to my soul. The journey of faith as walking toward trouble. Or let us expand that image to be more inclusive. The journey of faith as moving toward trouble, however it is that we get there. Doesn't that speak right to the heart of Unitarian Universalism? As the new revisions to our Unitarian Universalist bylaws remind us, don't worry, I won't spend a lot of time on our bylaws in this sermon. Ours is a faith that is grounded in shared values that include generosity, equity, and justice. And living out these shared values calls us to move toward, not away from, trouble in our world. Our UU faith, empowered by the spirit of love, calls us to move toward the people and the systems that are suffering or broken, and to do our part to embrace, touch, and heal the world. Yes, ours is a faith that moves toward and engages trouble in the world. And as I sat with this image of the life of faith as moving toward trouble, then a follow-up question. emerged for me. I understood, right? I've got a great image of the call to be loving and courageous and move toward trouble, toward suffering and injustice. But what came up for me after that was, well, what then? What in the world do we do when we get there? After compassion, courage, and faith have moved us right smack in the center of suffering, what then? What do we do with trouble when we're finally face to face with it? Now, I don't really presume to answer that question today. In good UU fashion, there could be as many answers to this question as there are Unitarian Universalists. But that being said, as this question marinated in my mind and my heart, the question of what to do when we're face to face with trouble, I discovered a profound and practical response in my training to become a chaplain. As part of my UU ministry training, I spent 8 months as a chaplain intern at the Hebrew Home, a Jewish skilled nursing center and assisted living for elders in Rockville, Maryland. Rabbi Jim Michaels guided our small group of trainees through a unit of interfaith training known as Clinical Pastoral Education, or CPE. He gave us scant few instructions to begin with. He assigned each chaplain to particular floors of the assisted living and instructed us to go knock on doors, offering residents a ministry of compassionate presence. Yeah, just go knock on doors? Strangers? A ministry of compassionate presence? Was he kidding? For me, who's probably half introvert, that wasn't enough to go on. I wanted way more than that before I knocked on a stranger's door, but that wasn't how the training worked. And so the first couple months, I spent a lot of quality time in the stairwell, calming my nerves with mindful breathing, some centering prayer. It was all that I could do to gather up my courage and knock on a stranger's door. And of course, that was the very point of the methodology. I was challenged right away to face my fears. And I had to ask myself, why was I afraid to knock on someone's door and ask if they'd like a visit? Well, frankly, I was afraid of being rejected. I was afraid people might feel upset that I was disturbing them. But as I dug deeper and knocked on more doors, I realized that more than being afraid of rejection, I was really afraid that they would invite me in. I was most afraid that they would want me to come in and they would share with me about their troubles and that I would have no idea what to do or say to help them. Turns out I was not as afraid of moving toward trouble as I was afraid of sitting with it. How do we sit with trouble? This is one of the big questions that lives in me as I work as a chaplain and a spiritual companion and sit with people who are suffering. It's a question that occupies me as I read every day another troubling news story. And it's a question I ask myself as I engage in social justice work around systemic injustices. Our UU faith calls us to move toward trouble and then to sit with it. But how? Breathe. Yeah, that's good. I can breathe, that helps. Listen. Yes, Yeah, sure. I'm a pretty good listener. That's probably why I became a chaplain. Have an open heart? Absolutely, yes. All these practices are wonderful and helpful, but they just aren't quite enough because there's something else that always gets in the way. When I go and sit with someone who's suffering, and that something else is me. The biggest obstacle to me sitting with someone else's trouble is the host of troubles that get stirred up inside of me. Every time we move toward trouble, we bring our own set of troubles with us. We bring our assumptions, we bring our fears, our experiences, our hurts. And so learning to sit with trouble involves learning how to first sit with ourselves, to sit with the pain and the fears that get stirred up inside of us when we scoot right in close to trouble. When we ignore our own troubles, pretending we don't have them with us, we often end up dumping them right into the lap of the ones we're trying to support. Evelyn, one of the residents at Hebrew Home, reminded me so much of my grandmother. My grandmother, who had passed away about 10 years earlier and whom I was very close to. Every time I saw Evelyn, I thought of my grandmother. And I felt that little pang of grief. Sometimes when talking with Evelyn, I would almost ache inside, wanting to tell her how much she reminded me of my grandmother and tell her about my grandmother. And I knew that if I did, she would reach out to me. She would give me a big hug, and she would try to comfort me. And then that would become the dynamic of our relationship. But Evelyn was going through her own crisis at the time. And she needed me to be there for her and not to burden her with my grief. So that brings us back to our story for all ages, right? Comfort in, dump, or complain out. Or another way to think of it is that we support in towards the center of the circle, and we process out. It's of no help to someone in the middle of a crisis for us to dump our own bag of troubles right in their lap. Instead, we can try to acknowledge to ourselves the bag next to us, gently set it down at the door so that we can be free to receive whatever the one who's in crisis needs from us. Support in, process out. That big bag of grief would still be there for me to pick up and process when I left a visit with Evelyn. Rabbi Michaels taught us a really helpful practice for how to be mindful, right, when a thought or a feeling about our own lives surfaced during a visit. It's very simple. I'm sure many of you know it. He invited us, like meditation, to acknowledge the thought and gently let it go. Notice it and let it go. It's rather similar to the practice in meditation, right? When we're focusing on breath or a mantra, to notice without judgment when a thought arises and then to let it go, return to the breath. And so sitting with trouble invites us to engage in mindful listening, mindful both of ourselves and of others. We listen to our friend, and then when a thought or feeling surfaces, we acknowledge it quietly to ourselves and let it go, returning our attention to our friend. And this is what I practiced and still have to practice with Evelyn. Just like in meditation, I have no control, right, over what thoughts are going to come to me. But I do have the ability to practice noticing them and letting them go again and again. And it turns out that some of this training has been really helpful in thinking about social justice work as well, especially the work of trying to be an ally to folks who identify with any kind of marginalized or oppressed group. Remember the image of those concentric rings? Oh, I've got my own little diagram here now, don't I? This little ring, right? Imagine that instead of there being a person at the center, imagine that there's some form of systemic injustice at the center, like racism, transphobia, or ableism. Inside the middle of the ring will be the people most affected by the injustice, the peoples whose lives are impacted daily and directly. Friends and social justice allies who want to be of support but who are not as directly impacted would be on a further ring, and so on. And so it turns out that ring theory is actually really helpful for supporting folks experiencing injustice and oppression too. Comfort in, dump out, or support in, process out. Because it turns out that just like how sitting with a friend in crisis brings up our own memories and hurts and fears, a similar thing happens in social justice work. Getting close to systemic troubles tends to stir up a host of troubling feelings, unexamined assumptions, and discomfort in us. And so an important part of social justice work is processing one's own bag of troubles in order to be more present, resilient, and effective as an ally. But that unpacking and processing is best done with folks with an equal or further ring out of impact, right? Those most directly impacted by the injustice of racism, for instance, have the right at the center of the concentric circles to share their thoughts, feelings, experiences about racism with anyone and everyone. In fact, it's what the world needs, what white folks in particular need to hear in order to help transform systems of injustice. But this kind of listening can be challenging. And these listener allies are also going to need support as they confront the issues that come up and feelings inside of them. And so ring theory reminds allies that our support is in processing with those who are equally or less impacted and not dumping their bag of stirred up stuff in the laps of the very folks they're trying to support. And I heard just a wonderful example of this on a webinar that I watched in preparation for another Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly that I attended in New Orleans in 2017. Anyone at that General Assembly? We've got a few folks. The webinar was hosted by Allies for Racial Equity, or ARE, a UU racial justice ministry specifically for white folks working to become racial justice allies. ARE operates in support and in accountability to an organization called DRUM, Diverse Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries. And DRUM is an organization made up of people of color. The instructor informed us that at General Assembly, DRUM and ARE set up information booths right next to each other in the booth hall. And it turned because I mean, for maybe a lot of reasons, but one reason in particular is that it's very common for well-meaning white Unitarian Universalists to go up to the drum booth staffed solely by people of color and vent their outrage and disbelief about things that are going on in their congregation or in their world. And as Ken Wagner, then president of ARE, told me, it's very painful and extraordinarily draining for the drum folks at the booth to deal with these stories over and over again. Wagner said, it's my job, so those at the ARE booth, and the job of other white folks to teach ourselves and each other how to navigate our own fragility and discomfort. Support in, process out. Comfort in, dump out. And so ARE sits beside Drum in the hall, offering a place for white folks to share about the troubles that have gotten stirred up as they have begun to sit with systemic racism. White allies sharing and processing with other white allies at the ARE booth can unpack their bag of troubles without further burdening the very folks that they want to support. Our UU faith is calling us on to move toward, not away from trouble. And so over and over again, we gather our courage and move a little closer to suffering and injustice and sit with the trouble that we find both within and without. Whether we are on an inner ring or an outer ring of any given trouble, we are all impacted by it. But we are not impacted in equal measure. So let us not unintentionally burden those most directly affected by trouble by setting our own bag of troubles right in their laps. Let us notice and set to the side our bag of troubles, our bag of hurts and fears, and let us reach out to those situated on similar or further out impacted rings in order to unpack and process what's in our bag. And then let us go back again to sit with trouble, setting our bag down at the door so that with open arms and a listening ear and a compassionate heart, we can do our part to embrace, touch, and heal the troubles of the world. May it be so. Amen.
Now, the reason why I'm making this point is because grammatically speaking, double negatives would be an incorrect way to line up your words, right? Now, however, in a culture years ago, there was a group of people who developed a habit of using double negatives. But in this case, the double negatives would be a negative plus a negative, which makes it even more negative.
As we extinguish this chalice, may we know its flame kindle within each of us as we carry its warmth to all whom our lives touch.
Friends, may the light and love of compassion guide our way as we sit with whatever trouble finds us this week. Blessings on your journey. Thank you.
Now please rise in body or in spirit and let us sing our closing hymn, I Need You to Survive.
What you doing? What you doing? What is this? What they?
Thank you.